Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where I profile agents of growth and transformation in education today. Each guest shares their highs, their lows, their passions, their goals, and the resources that are shaping their thinking and inspiring their practice. For show notes and links from each episode, visit teachersonfire.net. You can also follow the show at Teachers on Fire on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, please subscribe to the show wherever you are listening right now. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's meet today's guest. Today, I'm speaking with Mike Washburn. Mike is a Microsoft and Education expert, the Director of Engagement at Participate, co-host of the fabulous OnEducation podcast, and the co-founder of the On Podcast Media Podcast Network. When you visit Mike's website, you encounter this phrase, passionately educating, constantly learning, and that really summarizes Mike's whole attitude and approach to education. Follow Mike on Twitter at Mr. Washburn, on Instagram at the same, at Mr. Washburn, and on his blog at MikeWashburn.net. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
I'm pumped. Happy to be here, Tim.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about your current context in education? What does that look like?
So I am the Director of Engagement at Participate. That's my day job. I love working there. I haven't been there for very long. Started in February, just kind of before. I traveled just before the virus got really scary. Which in hindsight is kind of interesting. And I almost went to South by Southwest as well, which would have been interesting. I do a lot of other things. Obviously, the podcast, the OnEducation podcast, takes up a lot of my time, and a number of other podcasts that are in various forms of development. I live in Barrie, Ontario, Canada, so another Canadian, and have a wife who is an educator as well. And a son in grade 6 and another son who is in preschool.
You mentioned your wife. I was listening actually to your latest episode of OnEducation last night, and I was kind of laughing as you talked about forcing her to tweet. So I love that. Sounds familiar.
She's not much of and I don't want to use the word self-promoter, but like she does great work. And I think that people could learn from her. So I'm always trying to push her to share her work because I think that especially in this time right now, she's really shining. And it's showing how much she thinks about her job and how she does it and how her work impacts her kids. And so I really want people to see that work as much as possible, I think.
For sure, and I completely agree with the assessment on the show that not all the great teachers are on Twitter. That's just a reality. We wish it was not the case, but I guess this campaign to bring educators on board continues. Well, before we go any further, Mike, how are you doing in the current crisis? What does the quarantine look like in your world, and how's it affected your work?
So I've been working from home for a couple of years. Before I joined Participate, I was working for Logix Academy. For the Canadians who listen, they'll probably be familiar with Logix Academy. They're the Canadian, one of the Canadian leaders in educational robotics. I was traveling across Canada teaching teachers how to use robots in their classroom, and that was a great job. So I was working from home already. So as far as like my day-to-day work, I was really well set up. I have a nice home office. I technically, my wife and I were actually taking a little bit of a mental inventory. We were talking with our kids about kind of equity and device use and how some students of hers and around the world don't even have access to any devices, and we're looking at multiple desktops and multiple laptops and multiple iPads and stuff like that, and we're considering ourselves super fortunate. The other thing that I'm super blessed about is that I'm certainly one of the only one of a very few amount of people whose personal situations have improved during this time in terms of financially and stuff like that. So we're giving back a lot. We're donating to the food bank in our community to make sure that they can continue to feed people. And you know, we're getting by okay. Cheryl's doing a great job with her work, and I'm always trying to give her some space to do her work, and I'm working incredibly hard. I'm kind of working nonstop at the moment. One of the things about working for a um, professional learning company that does most of its work online is that that's actually what a lot of people are looking for right now. So that makes my job pretty busy at the moment.
There's a lot of positives there, and that's great to hear, Mike. Do your kids miss school? Do they want to get back?
They miss Isaac misses his friends for sure. And so it took us a couple weeks to realize that he was missing his friends, but you know, once some of the signs had become apparent, we made a conscious effort to give him some space to do things like a lot more playing games, playing Fortnite with his buddies online, and doing Google Hangouts, even if it was a little bit later, because that's the time his friends all had that they could get together. And we've been, you know, carving out space for that. The little one had a good cry fairly early on, missing his grandma. Jacob used to go to grandma's house every day, and now can only, you know, and lots of hugs and cuddles, right, with grandma. And now it's he sees grandma from 6 feet away once or twice a week, and you know, that's a shock for a little boy who doesn't really understand what the heck is going on, other than that mommy and daddy are talking about a lot of people getting sick. Um, you know, so there's been a little bit of tears, a little bit of frustration, a little bit of loneliness by our kids, but we're identifying some of that stuff and trying to help, you know, resolve it as best we can.
Well, it's a unique time, absolutely. It's a historic moment in a sense, and hopefully one that these kids will remember for some time. Hopefully, the only one of its kind. I mean, we don't know what the future holds, but it's been interesting to say the least. Well, Mike, it is story time. So share with us about a low moment or an experience of adversity that you've faced somewhere in your teaching or education career, and describe how you overcame it.
So I don't like telling this story very often, but it is the best story for this question. So I taught at a private school, grade 2 to 8 for 6 years, and my first year that I taught there, um, the grade 7 class um, that year was particularly um, rough for me. I was a first year uh, teacher there and new to the culture, definitely new to the intricacies of teaching at a private school and everything that that involves. You know, when people pay for their education, you know, in an actual like way that they feel by cutting a check, it changes the mentality. It becomes more of a customer and provider relationship that is different, to say the least. And, you know, all the time you hear people talk about, um, I'm struggling with how to exactly frame it, but I'm hesitant to put a lot of blame on the students. But the reality is, and to be honest, this is me being fairly real. The reality is, there are kids that you will never be able to, you know, heal a relationship, that you'll never be able to reach. And if you think that that's not true, I mean, I'm not sure you're looking at things, you know, with the right through the right lens, to be perfectly honest. The truth is that there's just going to be relationships that you're not going to be able to break through in. And this was the case with these kids. They were rough for me in grade 7, they were rough for me in grade 8, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, there are a number of those grade 7s from 6 years ago that continue to troll teachers, from RHMS and me, to this day. So these are kids that are now in their 3rd, 4th year of university, right? 2nd, 3rd, and 4th years of university. What would they be? They'd be in These are kids in their 2nd year of university, and they continue to disrespect and be rude to a number of these teachers that taught them. Um, and that's frustrating to me because we want to give students the benefit of the doubt. We want to say it's their background, it's their whatever, their social economic status, whatever it is. But it was a pretty frustrating experience to teach through, to fear having that class every day, or every day that I had it. I didn't have them every single day, but it was a strange experience to wake up in the morning and remember what cycle day it is and go, oh. And that's terrible. Like, that's an awful feeling. I actually flat out told one of their parents once, in a parent teacher meeting. I said, I don't want to teach your child's class. I fear teaching your child's class. I wake up in the morning and it's the thing that dominates my thoughts the entire day until the day is done. And I actually, that parent that I was talking to, I made them cry because they didn't actually realize it was that bad. And I said to them, I've been telling you this in various ways, shapes, and forms for the better part of the year. So I'm not sure how you're so surprised. But I had to do that because I'm a person too, and teachers are people, and teachers have mental health needs and social emotional needs, just like our students. And these students were affecting my mental health. And they, to be honest, they continue to impact my mental health, which is so crazy, right? I have dreams about these students sometimes too. So if you want to talk about like a low moment or experience of adversity, I mean, it's kind of bad to say, or rough to say, um, that it's dealing with students like this. But to be honest, that's what I was dealing with. And um I wish it wasn't that way. And to be honest, again, to turn it around, I had a lot of great moments teaching at that school, and a lot of great parents and a lot of great students that did absolutely stunning work, and that gave me the chance to um do a lot of crazy stuff with them. So, I'm still incredibly thankful for my time there, but I'll never forget the grade 7s that year.
So, just before we move on, Mike, I think you've touched on something really, really important because, frankly, I think we idealize. We hear so much across edu Twitter about relationships, love kids, and all of these things are essential. We all believe that is obviously the path forward with our students, but sometimes these relationships just cannot be reconciled, or sometimes, I think to a year I had 5 years ago, same situation where a couple of key leaders in the class maybe identified me as the enemy, right? And if the vibe of the room has really gone south, that can be a hard place to be. It can feel like war. It can feel depleting. And like you said, those are the classes that really make us think about leaving the profession. So let's connect the dots. I mean, is it just a case of putting your head down and finishing out the year and brighter days will come, or is there something else that you would recommend from that experience?
Well, I think that's what I did. I had to teach them the next year as well, obviously, when they were in grade 8. Um, uh, so I called them the grade 7s because they were in grade 7 my first year, but I had to teach them again. the second year that I was teaching. And, you know, I continued to work hard for them. I continued to do the best I could despite genuinely not enjoying the experience of teaching them. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how teachers cannot be honest about stuff like that. That it's true. And if you say no, 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 I love every single one of my students all the time. I mean, that's just, it's, to be honest, it's just ridiculous. And I think that we're better off if we're just honest with ourselves and with each other about the struggles that we're going with, uh, about the struggles that we're going through, so that we can help each other and talk through them. So I worked through it. I worked hard. I was passionate about passing on the things that I was hoping they would take with them when they left, and I didn't stop doing that. But every class, every time they came to class, I still had tremendous amounts of anxiety for the 2 years that they were with me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, Mike, I think it gives those teachers out there. I know teachers that this message will connect with. And thinking about love, I mean, sometimes, yeah, we try to love our students. I'm using the verb there. We don't necessarily feel, or maybe we don't always like them, or we don't like them all, right? But yeah, we keep on going. We give what we can, and I think it's essential to find joy in other parts of our lives, because otherwise, frankly, we're quitting, we're leaving.
Yeah, that's right.
I want to look at a couple of areas that you're involved in right now, Mike. It's been an exciting season for you, as you hinted a little bit at the top. So, first of all, congratulations on your new position at Participate. Let's start there. Can you talk about the mission and vision of Participate and describe your role in moving that forward?
So Participate is a social learning company. We take the best parts of social media and the best parts of professional learning, and kind of mash them together in a platform that serves to give folks a place that they can collaborate, communicate, share resources and ideas, and work together in whatever way that looks like for them. We work with school districts, we work with schools individually, private schools. We work with a lot of companies, a lot of nonprofits, organizations all over the map, in helping them map out whatever their professional learning needs are. My role as the director of engagement is to help our stakeholders, our clients, our partners find the best ways they can to connect with their audiences, whatever those audiences are. And primarily through the lens of things like podcasting, streaming, social media, and making sure that our discussions, we have a very powerful discussion area in the platform, that those discussions remain, vibrant and active. And then also making sure that we produce, when we're asked to, we help them craft great video products that they can use to engage their audiences. And we also have a really interesting and powerful course system inside Participate, where people can build courses and share those courses with their community. And so people can go and learn about almost anything they want. And what's great about the platform is that it's fairly open, which means that you can come to Participate to join the sustainable development goals community, but you can see that there's also a game-based learning community on the platform as well, and you can go and join that community too, because it's open and available to you, which means that you can learn a lot of interesting things on the platform. And obviously, it's growing every day. We're adding new communities to the platform. So that means that people can get a lot of professional learning right through the platform. We have a very powerful badging system as well, which means that you're not just learning things and finding this place where you can collaborate and talk to each other, but you're also getting something out of it. You're showing your learning, you're demonstrating your knowledge through the open badges that you're going to receive. And because they're open badges, they actually have um, data attached to them related to the achievement that you've acquired, which is important. Participate is producing a number of podcasts. So that's one of the things that has happened as I've come on board. The actual first podcast talks, the episode one actually just came out a day before this recording. So on May 15th, we released Talks, which is a Participate podcast. And the next podcast, which is just called Participate, should be released in the next couple weeks. And then we're working on podcasts with our partners, and collaborating with different groups and companies on podcasts as well. I also didn't mention that we're doing a lot of streaming now. And this is actually the big thing for me right now is my focus on streaming. And I think we can find some time to talk about that later.
Absolutely. Well, I think the last episode of OnEducation that I listened to was a live stream, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So we are doing something a little different. So we did a Twitter chat. We had done it for the better part of a year and a half, called Chat on Education. And what we've decided to do is to make it live and in person and on video. So every Friday night at 8 o'clock, myself and Glen Irvin and the rest of the team get together and stream on the Inside Participate Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/Inside Participate. And, we talk about the pod. We talk about what's going on. We take deep dives into whatever it is we want to talk about. And we certainly have a lot of fun and laughs along the way. And it's meant to be more collaborative in nature, in the sense that people can tune in to the stream and weigh in on the same things we're talking about. And, we can have a conversation with our audiences, which is super exciting.
I am still one of these weird educators that has not gone over to Twitch yet. I'm not a Twitcher at this time, but I'm warming up to it, Mike. I'm coming over, and we'll get that link to the Participate channel in the show notes as well. I did want to mention Participate sounds like a phenomenal community, and I can certainly understand the growth during these times, right? During the last 2 months, where I think there's never really been, I'm sure you'd agree, there's never really been a better time to build a robust PLN. And you mentioned the course offerings and all the other resources. I think educators and schools are really in need of curation, of quality sources that they can go to sort of unlock everything else that they're looking for. And it sounds like that's the kind of place you're building at Participate. So very, very cool. Well, you mentioned podcasting, and I did want to touch on one other fun project, the official podcast for Minecraft Education from Microsoft, of course. It just so happens that I tried my very first class project with Minecraft a couple of days ago, inspired by some work done by Jeffrey Frieden students in Ontario, California. So my head has just recently gotten more into this space. And just quickly for the audience, I'll say that the project that I'm attempting, I'm working through some stuff in the Middle Ages in my social studies class. And so seeing what Jeffrey's students were able to create on Minecraft, I thought, wouldn't this be fun for my students to collaboratively build a medieval castle with all of the features there? I thought that would be perfect for remote learning. And so you'll probably roll your eyes at this, Mike, but at first I sent them to the classic edition, which is free. And my kids quickly told me that over half the class owned the actual paid version of Minecraft. And so they really wanted to use that because it's loaded with a whole lot more features. And so I greenlighted that, and then it sort of became a little bit messy because some kids had it and some kids didn't, and I started worrying about equity. So it's a first run at this thing, but yes, Minecraft. Tell us what you love about this platform and the opportunities that it presents learners, and maybe if you want, tell us a little bit about what we can expect in the podcast.
So one of the things that everyone listening should keep in mind is that if you have access to Office 365 as an institution, as a district, school board, whatever, then you have access to Minecraft Education Editions for free. So if you have logins to Office 365, if you are a Microsoft district, you may not have even known that you can download Minecraft Education Edition and very likely log in with your credentials, um, and play Minecraft Education Edition with your students. And because you're all on the same, what they would call tenant, the domain name, you can actually all play together in a multiplayer world. Up to 30 people can play together in Minecraft at the same time in Minecraft Education Edition. So I'd strongly recommend anyone who's interested in using Minecraft for remote learning to take a look at whether they have access or not. Um, and I guess listen to the first episode of the Minecraft Education Edition podcast, because it's exactly what we talk about: how to use Minecraft in remote learning. We just have started recording the actual episodes. The trailer was launched again actually just yesterday. So it's actually going through the approvals process right now with Apple and Google and all of those places. And we should see that out and available probably by the time this podcast comes out. And so the trailer is out. The first episode has been recorded, and the schedule is frantic to record the rest of these episodes. We will have 8 episodes of the Minecraft Education Edition podcast done by the end of June, believe it or not. Yeah, so season 1 is all planned out more or less, and it's been well, first off, I mean, let's be honest, this is pretty cool, like, bucket list type stuff. Um, I'm hosting the official podcast for Minecraft. Um, it's pretty wild, to be honest, and I still kind of can't believe it's happening. I've been super passionate about Minecraft for a long time. I was one of the first people to present about Minecraft at ISTE. I did a session at ISTE in 2015 on Minecraft, which seems like, an eternity ago, as it relates to technology and education. This is pre Microsoft owning Minecraft, and very much in the early days even of the Minecraft EDU group that preceded Minecraft Education Edition. So Minecraft is the most popular game in the world. It is the most played game in the world by a gigantic margin. While Fortnite in some cases is more the game that is on the tips of tongues a lot, Minecraft is still by a gigantic margin the most played game on the planet, and it's been that way for a long time. And that means that this is the game that our kids know and our kids love, a lot of them, not just a small percentage of your students. So you said most of your class had Minecraft already. And I can tell you that if you're listening to this, most of your kids play Minecraft. They may not play it frantically and they may not play it all day, every day kind of thing, but they almost all have it and they almost all play it, which means, when you think of it from a game-based learning context, this is the type of game that we want to use. We want to use a game that kids love, that kids know, and that kids are passionate about using. The idea that we can take a little bit of their home life, the things that they do at home, where they watch people stream, they go on YouTube, and they play Minecraft, and bring that a little closer to school. We got to make that home to school connection a lot smaller, a lot tighter. And Minecraft does that better than anything that exists right now. I firmly believe that Minecraft is the most powerful tool for teaching and learning that exists. More powerful than all of those other tools that are on the tips of our tongues and that we think about, because of the things that you can do. You can play synchronously with your classes. You can have them all in a world at the same time. You can play asynchronously, where they can build something, save it, and then share it with another student who can then add on to it. Or you can give students individually their own worlds and allow them to explore that space and imagine what they would do on their own. And then you have all of these tools inside the game, like the book and quill, where you can document what you've done. You can take pictures, screenshots, or you can use video. You can turn on Flipgrid, for example, and record a video of you playing your Minecraft world and talking about what it is that you're doing and what it is that you've learned. There's so much power in a game that kids love to play and would love to learn on, that it makes it really hard to beat.
I think of all the activities that our teenagers are immersed in, especially in the remote learning environment where they're getting so much more screen time. And Minecraft, the thing that stands out to me on top of everything you said is that it is a creative activity, right? And so much of what they do is consumption or consumptive, but I love that aspect that they are building, they're creating, they're making things, and there's a whole lot of thinking and engagement that goes into that.
And what's even funnier is that I love Minecraft creative mode, which is the mode where you don't have to like gather materials and stuff like that. You have access to all of the items, and you can build whatever you want anytime you want. And it's funny, my wife is learning how to play Minecraft as we speak. This is kind of her big PD focus during this time, as she's learned how to play Minecraft. And she's actually super into Minecraft survival, which is that world where you have to like gather materials and combine them to craft things and stuff like that. But I actually also play what's called Minecraft. You hear me talk about it. If you listen to OnEducation, you hear me talk about Minecraft hardcore mode all of the time, because it's my jam. And this is a mode in the Java edition of Minecraft where once you die, you're done. You can no longer play in that world ever again. And so you actually play differently when you are playing with that in mind. But you learn a ton about Minecraft by playing in hardcore mode.
I am a G Suite convert. I'm completely committed to the G Suite, but I will say Microsoft they really scored a couple of huge wins in recent years when they acquired Minecraft. And you also mentioned the other big one, of course, Flipgrid, phenomenal tools in the Microsoft suite. Well, let's stick with the podcasting theme. We've mentioned the Participate podcast, the Minecraft podcast, and we'll have to link all of these. I'm subscribed now to the Minecraft podcast, so looking forward to those episodes. One of the reasons I love OnEducation, which is really where all the podcasting started for you and Glen Irvin, is that you don't run your thoughts through any sort of political filter. You two, I'm trying to think of any other podcast that really brings it like you two do, but you tell it like it is, and sometimes that means holding politicians, education companies, textbooks, or other education personalities to the fire, their feet to the fire. So, in the age of political correctness, where just about the worst thing we can do is offend another person or educator, talk about the importance of bringing critical thinking and sometimes some tough talk to the education conversation.
It helps that I care very little about losing Twitter followers, or about losing, my job, or especially I don't work for a school district. I don't have to worry about being politically correct, because some, ridiculous administrator is listening to my podcast and saying, "I can't believe you said that about, Donald Trump," or whatever. I can say Donald Trump's an absolute idiot and not get in trouble for it. So I do. And the reality is that everyone is talking about the politics of education except for educators. Um, Education is political. It is guided by budgets that are decided by politicians. The politicians are determined by your votes. There is an amazing, ridiculous, complex intersectionality between you going to a ballot box and you being able to do your job as an educator. And if you aren't thinking about that, you're not doing you're not doing it right, friends. You're not doing it right. You need to think about what you're voting and how you're voting and who you're voting for and how that's going to affect your work, because it does. Every day it affects your work. It affects whether or not you're going to go back to school in the middle of a pandemic. This is all political. And so we need to be having these conversations. We need to have our voices heard. And in the United States the last couple years, there's been a lot of like protests. A lot of educators finally have had enough, and when they did that, they got concessions. Now they still need to you still need to get your butts out and vote, but and make sure you're making your voices heard constantly. But education is political. And you know, as far as like education companies and textbook companies, thank God, a lot of them don't listen to the podcast, or I probably wouldn't get any side gigs for the rest of my career. But the reality is that we should to be demanding the best from textbook companies, from education. These are the companies that are helping us teach the future of our society. And if parents and society is demanding the best from educators, well, we need to demand the best from these groups as well, which means that education companies, you've got to bring it. You've got to do meaningful things to help improve the work and the teaching and the learning that educators are doing. It's why Flipgrid is talked about so much, because it's a company run mostly by educators, and they are thinking about the teachers first and what they need. And that is resonating with teachers. You know, if it was just something run by Microsoft and it had like this insane amount of like corporate polish on it, it'd just be another thing that Microsoft is doing. And that wouldn't be enough. It's that they're passionate about making sure teachers have the best tools that they can to do their jobs, that makes that product, that service compelling. And the reason why we slag on textbooks so much is that textbooks are terrible. Um, and they haven't been good for a long time. And when they try to pretend like they're doing something good, they're still doing something bad. They try to make a video game, and they say, "Hey, look, we're doing games based learning now." But it's terrible. It's awful, and it's not games based learning. So stop and think about what you're doing, and actually try to do something good for teachers instead of just trying to do stuff that's good for your shareholders. And this idea that I heard a friend once say, um a lot of these big education corporations, especially the ones that run your standardized testing, they're creating the disease and then selling you the cure. And I couldn't have phrased it any better, so I just steal it from my friend. And because it's exactly what's happening. So if we can't be honest about this stuff, I don't know what the heck we're doing around here. We need to talk about these things. We need to have these conversations.
Well, it's refreshing, Mike. I really appreciate the content, as I've said already. And I think you and Glenn, I mean, usually you're on the same page. Sometimes you sort of face off in a friendly way. And I think those different perspectives can be a lot of fun too. But it's a no holds barred kind of show. And I so appreciate it. So keep on bringing that critical conversation. As you look across your PLN and your own practice, Mike, what else is setting you on fire about education today?
So I'm incredibly fortunate now to work at a company that believes in, what I'm trying to do and where my mind is at. And I'm thinking a lot right now about the future of professional learning, about the way that teachers learn. We talk constantly about the class of 2030. And we talk about what student learning is going to look like in 10, 15 years. But we're not talking a lot about the way that teachers are going to look in 10, 15 years. And the reality is that the teachers 10, 15 years from now are freshmen in university today, or even earlier, to be honest. There are grade 6s and 7s right now. And the truth is, how do they want to learn? Well, they want to learn in games-based learning. They want to learn through things like YouTube. They go home, and if they don't know something, they pull up YouTube and they watch a short video on how they do it. They go on streaming platforms and watch their favorite streamers stream. So if they're doing this stuff now, do we instantly think the moment they get out of university, they're going to be interested in watching boring one-way webinars and slide decks that have like a load of text on them, presented by a presenter who barely knows anything about what they're talking about, just enough to sell the product? I mean, no is the actual answer to that question. So we need to start thinking about what the future of professional learning looks like. And I think it looks a lot like the way that our students today in elementary school and early high school want to learn now. And we need to, as educators, start thinking about that. We need to start talking about the way that professional learning looks like in the future.
Can you say, I don't want to park too long on this, but can you say sort of what model you are thinking about, or maybe a combination of models? I mean, I'm thinking about choice and voice in our classroom, student agency, and it sounds like you'd agree that we need to apply the same principles to educators. So what does that look like? I mean, do you see a move away from the sort of one size fits all conferences? Do you see more personalized, self-driven professional development where teachers just sign up for courses that meet their needs and interests, or what is the path forward in this space?
So how about even better than having to quote unquote sign up? How about if you could go to a place where it was just there, whatever you wanted? So the mission, for example, of Participate is that people should be able to learn whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want to do it. Okay. So what if you could go to a place where you could take a course, or you could have a discussion, or you could tune into a, for lack of better words, a TV show about something that you wanted to learn, or you could listen to an audio clip, a podcast about what it is that you wanted to learn. And how about if you could do all of that in the exact same place? Sounds a lot like what we're trying to do at Participate, right? And so that's what I'm leaning towards, is this idea that, we need to open up the pathways for people to learn whatever they want to learn, wherever they want to learn it, and however they want to learn it. And we're starting to work towards that by building out some models like the podcast, and most specifically the streaming channel. So we are, Steve Isaacs, my very good friend Steve Isaacs, and I are streaming every day at 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, and we're talking about different tools and resources and ideas and concepts and pedagogy that you can use to teach. And you don't have to do it exactly the way we're doing, but we're hoping that you come away inspired. So, the future vision of this for me is that something like our Twitch channel becomes a place where there is constantly something on it. I'm talking literally, and I'm being completely honest, 24/7 professional learning, like a television station where you can log in and you can watch, and you'll get a schedule, almost like I'm gonna date myself, but almost like a TV guide. I guess they put that right on the TV now. You don't have to buy a stupid book anymore. But you go and you look at what's going to be on over the next couple of weeks, and you just tune in when you want to tune in, and there will be whoever it is sharing something that you're interested in learning about, and all you had to do was do what you were doing anyways, which was probably just surfing the web.
Well, I love the mix of asynchronous and synchronous offerings that you're putting out there, Mike. And I'm sure you would agree. And anyone really in the podcast space, anyone listening right now, gets the power of asynchronous professional development, which is truly anytime, any place, anywhere, at your comfort level in the way that you want to listen and learn. And then you're also offering these live streaming options, which bring in the community and the connections as well. So it truly is a remarkable landscape right now for people looking to learn and develop professionally in really any area. What is another area of learning for you, Mike? What is it that ignites your passions when you leave the education space and brings you alive as a human being?
Well, I am spending a lot of time on Twitch. I won't lie. I'm watching. I'm watching gamers play various games. I'm learning from them. I'm learning about their style and their nuance and how they. In particular, one of the things I'm super interested in is how streamers interact with the chat. Because that's a big part of this is the idea that you're streaming something, you're demonstrating something, but there's a chat going on at the same time where people are weighing in and having conversations. And so I'm learning a lot about how um, folks are streaming, playing, especially something that is intense, like these folks that are streaming first person shooters or games like Fortnite or something like that, and then watching how they're interacting with their chat at the same time. It's I'll be honest, streaming is really hard work, and I think that not a lot of people appreciate the fact that that it is. And to be honest, it's exhausting to be on and to be doing multiple things all at the same time that are very, very active and taxing. So I've been watching, and I because I love strategy games and kind of management games, sim type games. So games like City Skylines or one of my new favorites, Oxygen Not Included, or Civilization. I play Civilization 5 and Civilization 6 all the time. I love watching um people play those games because even though they aren't like frenetic, they aren't action packed. um Usually the folks that are streaming those games are incredibly talented at those games, and so watching them play a game that requires some amount of like skill and experience and it shows a mind at work a little bit. And watching them play and then watching them also interact with their audience. I'm learning a lot of things by watching Twitch.
All right, folks, you heard it here first. Twitch is where the action is. Mike, before we get into your quick picks, I do want to ask you about one personal habit or productivity hack that contributes to your success. Is there an app or a routine or a habit that really helps you get it all done?
Well, I'd be lost without my calendar. That's for sure. And I've taken to blocking out times. One of the things that's happening now is that people have my calendar link. You do too now. People have people have my calendar link and they just slide into my calendar. And it happens every once in a while now. And so what I've had to do is block out time. So if you were to look at my Google Calendar now, you'd see it's very colorful. First off, um, but there's a level of coordination to it that is really important to me. So I block off family time in the morning and family time at night so that people can't slide into my meetings after, especially after hours. If I want to book a meeting at 6 o'clock at night, I'll book a meeting at 6 o'clock at night. But I don't want people just assuming that I can meet with you at 6 o'clock at night, for example. So I block out those times. I do make myself available a little bit later at night after kids go to bed. I do meet every once in a while with companies or groups or people in China and Australia. So those times are important to them to be available for every once in a while. But then I color code things. So I have a lot of like the podcast is a certain color, the streaming is a certain color, my meetings are a certain color, and then it's funny. I actually just realized a couple weeks ago that I have to make a new color, and so I use gray for actual what I call work time. And so this is time where I'm not, well, because I sit in meetings a lot. Like I'm in Zoom calls all the time. But like there's times where I actually just need to not be talking to people and be doing something like writing an outline for a podcast or writing a proposal for a client or writing a blog post, or, heaven forbid, trying to finish my damn book. I mean, so I'm trying to I have work time blocked off now too, and it's gray so that people can see it, and it's super obvious. It stands out in the greens and the blues and the yellows. The gray stands out as don't you dare book me during this time, or I will be upset. So I can't do anything without my calendar these days.
That makes a ton of sense. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but you're talking about Calendly, right? As the app that sort of gives other people access to your calendar?
Yeah, well, so my calendar link comes through our customer management system. But it's very similar to the way it's almost exactly the way Calendly looks, except for it's kind of a customized URL for our company's domain. So it's like participate.com/meetings/Mike Washburn or something like that. Please don't let that be the actual thing, or people are going to start booking meetings with me. I'm not that cool. That won't happen. But that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah.
Mike, it is time for your quick picks. And here we want to know the education voices and resources that are shaping your practice and inspiring your thinking today. So let's start at the big one, Twitter. Tell us about someone we should follow there and share why they've been inspiring you lately.
So there's some obvious answers to this for me. Folks like Steve Isaacs, Glen Irvin, my people that my career would be nothing without. The rest of the OnEducation team, Dave Blanchard, Melissa Pilikowski, our new teammates, Audrey Thornborough, Kelly Coons, Diana McGee, Claudio Zavala, and Andy Lizer. We are a team of 9 now. So almost a real thing, folks, at OnEducation. So those and what's amazing about that group of people is that they're all different. They come from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different parts of North America, and they all are in education in different ways. It's become a very diverse team of people with a lot of varying experiences. So when you bring all of those voices together, you get something really special. And really quickly, all of the people I work with that participate, Mark Otter is on Twitter, Sarah Howell, Dr. Julie Keene is on Participate. Those folks are absolutely amazing.
Point us to an ed tech tool that you currently love using somewhere in your professional work and practice.
Oh boy. I struggled answering this one because I was trying to find something that no one's probably said before, but to hell with it. The real answers are Flipgrid and Minecraft, which are changing the world of education every day. And I respect folks doing the work, and the folks at Flipgrid and the folks at Minecraft are doing the work.
Recommend one book, maybe one that you've been reading lately, or one of your all-time faves that's really been deeply influential.
So I don't read a lot of education books, but I've read The President's Club a couple times. I'm a political junkie, and this is a book about how presidents in the past have interacted with each other. And I'll also shout out anything by Primo Levi. Primo Levi is a renowned author writing about the Holocaust specifically, and some of the most beautiful writing you'll ever read.
Mike, you're the producer and co-host of On Education, and now you've told us about 2 other podcasts that you've got under your belt. What are you listening to? What are some of your go-to podcasts?
So this is another one that isn't good for education podcasts, but I don't actually listen to a ton of education podcasts. I'll listen to the odd one, but I listen to primarily politics and policy podcasts. So 538's politics podcast, Vox's podcast, The Weeds, and the Ezra Klein Show, which is also a Vox podcast. And I'll have to say that Ezra Klein himself has been super influential in my style of interviewing and conversational style a little bit. If you listen to the Ezra Klein Show and then listen to, for example, Talks, which is definitely modeled on the Ezra Klein Show, you'll see some similarities there.
Tell us about a YouTube channel that you enjoy, and this could be one that has been impactful in the education space, or maybe one that just amuses you personally.
This question gives me a lot of joy because I get to share Let's Game It Out. You have got to go watch Let's Game It Out on YouTube. This guy takes video games and plays them in the best yet worst way possible. Like making zoos that are just unbelievably unappealing looking, but completely bizarre and functional in weird ways, and wrapped in an incredible sense of humor. And it's brought our family a lot of pleasure to watch him play.
The last question, Mike, is just for fun. What are you watching on Netflix these days?
So I don't think this is on Netflix, but this is definitely on a streaming service. I started watching Star Trek Picard, and then I stopped because my life got so incredibly busy that I don't actually watch very much TV at all. But I'm pretty determined to get back to Picard.
Mike, I've so enjoyed our time today. I feel like we could talk for hours. There's so much more that we haven't even touched on. I was hoping to get into the Oculus Quest. I saw you pick that up the other day, or maybe a newer version of it. So we're going to have to do a part 2 here at some point. But what are the best ways for the listeners to follow you? And I know you've got a little bit of ground to cover here. If you don't mind, mention the book as well, sort of what's cooking there.
So Twitter, at Mr. Washburn, and at OnEducation Pod. My website is mikewashburn.net. The podcast is oneducationpodcast.com. Participate is participate.com. I'm on Instagram, Mr. Washburn. The podcast is OnEducation Pod, I think. What else? Okay, well, the book. The book is coming. It's hard. Writing a book is hard, friends, especially one that you want to be so good. It has a title. It's going to be called The Education Revolution Will Be Broadcast. I don't know when it's coming out, but you'll know when it's coming.
Absolutely, we will. Well, thank you again, Mike. You've been super generous with your time today. I look at you as a mentor in many respects. Love the OnEducation show. We'll have to have Glen on here as well at some point. But keep on doing what you're doing and being that voice for educators. Thank you so much for coming on. Take care, and let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Tim.
Before we sign off today, I'd like to share some highlights from around the Teachers on Fire Nation this week. But before I get there, I also want to say a few things about the times we find ourselves in. Today's conversation with Mike Washburn was recorded weeks before the George Floyd incident occurred in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And for those who may be listening to this podcast weeks, months, or even years from the time of publishing, I'm talking about a police officer's decision to keep his knee pressed on George's neck long enough to take the man's life. George was completely prostrate, face down on the ground, and handcuffed at the time that he was killed. He posed no threat to police or the public, yet his final moments were spent with his face in the pavement as he begged for his life. His death was just one more instance of an African-American man's unjust death at the hands of white law enforcement. As Evan Whitehead commented in episode 150, every negative situation that happens is, unfortunately, a learning opportunity. So what can we take away from the George Floyd situation as a society? What can we learn as educators? What does it mean to be anti-racist? These are the hard questions that we can and should be asking ourselves as educators, leaders, parents, and human beings. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'm listening, I'm learning, and I plan to do more reflecting on this topic in the days and weeks ahead. 2 resources that I've found personally helpful include 13th, a powerful documentary on Netflix that traces some of the history of institutionalized racism in America, and a book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Renee Edo-Lodge. Both resources were eye-opening and challenged some of my own notions about my participation in racist systems and structures. The purpose of this podcast is to spark growth and transformation in education by leaning into these important conversations. And although I never do it perfectly, I do want to commit to continuing those efforts here. Thank you for walking with me on that journey. to the shout-outs. Our first stop is on Twitter, where Kelly Croy at Wired Educator tweeted, quote, "Please give at Teachers on Fire a follow and a listen. Quality podcast and class act. Great encourager," end quote. Thank you so much for those kind words, Kelly. If you're not familiar with his work on the Wired Educator podcast, I would definitely encourage you to check him out. He's one of my regular listens. Next on Instagram, to a video rant I posted about the importance of not putting ourselves in boxes of learning, Tim Stevenson at t.stevenson commented, "Gotta say, I 100% agree." Thanks for the support, Tim, and I do appreciate you following me on Instagram. To all who have read, viewed, liked, retweeted, commented, or replied to my content, thank you. You are the fuel to my fire, and I so appreciate your support. Speaking of Instagram, I want to let you know that I've been going live on that platform every day for about a month. Catch me at about 4 p.m. Pacific Time or 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time daily as I connect with teachers on fire around the globe to hear what they've been learning lately. It's been a lot of fun, and lately there have been some intense conversations. Very, very enjoyable. Make sure you drop by the Teachers on Fire magazine on Medium this week, where recent writers have included Debbie Tannenbaum and Tom Hobson. The Teachers on Fire magazine is a Medium publication, and you'll find it on medium.com or on the Medium app. If you'd like to join our writing team there, your first step is to create a Medium account simply using your Google credentials. Message Teachers on Fire on any social media platform for details. Well, I will leave you with this quote from my reading Teachers on Fire. It's from a book called Sparks in the Dark: Lessons, Ideas, and Strategies to Illuminate the Reading and Writing Lives in All of Us. It's written by Travis Crowder at TeachermanTrav and Todd Nesloni at TechNinjaTodd. And the quote reads as follows, quote, "Readers read. They devour everything around them. And the more they read, the more natural it becomes, and the more they find themselves making time for it," end quote. I love that so much, because there is our green light. There is our mandate, educators, to create more risk-free reading, more obligation-free reading for our students. We're giving them a huge gift when we do that, and we need not feel guilt over it. Not every bit of reading our students do needs to be accompanied or followed up by some kind of analysis or response. Again, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend some of your day listening to this podcast. I hope that in some way the content you heard here from Mike Washburn ignited your thinking and inspired your practice, and I'll meet you next week right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast. Take care, stay safe, and keep on learning.